whispers of the water, Mark's destiny. The Kenyan jungle whispered secrets as Mark and the mermaid, Amana, emerged from the mystical pool, bathed in the silver glow of a full moon streaming through the broken roofing. The ancient building, enshrouded in vines, loomed silently, its presence as timeless as the stars above. "Mark," Amana began, her voice a melody that seemed to harmonize with the night. Her eyes, deep pools of azure, held his gaze, drawing him into depths he'd never known. "Do you feel it? The pulse of the ancient magic that connects us?" Mark nodded, his heart racing. The air around them vibrated with an energy that felt both exhilarating and daunting. "I do. It's like a song that's always been in my soul, waiting for the right moment to surface. The magic, a force both ancient and endlessly renewing, had filled the mystic pool once more, allowing for passage between worlds, a gateway that had stood dormant and empty since Mark's disappearance. Unknown to Mark, this resurgence of magic was the key to his return. Time had passed differently between the realms of land and sea, years in one stretching into mere moments in the other. To those who knew of its existence, it had become a place of whispered tales and faded hopes, particularly to Mark's father, who had returned to New York burdened with the weight of his son's absence. Amana smiled, her dreadlocks cascading over her shoulders, shimmering in the moonlight. "Our meeting was not by chance, Mark. Your father and my people made a pact long ago to provide him with great wealth. In exchange, he would secure our future with the new child from his world and of his blood. You are the legacy of that promise." Mark felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. "But why me? And why now?" "Because," she said, moving closer, her presence enveloping him, "our world is changing. The balance between our realms is threatened. Only together can we protect it." Mark reached out, his hand hesitating in the air between them. Amana took his hand in hers, her touch sending ripples of warmth through him. "I feel drawn to you, Amana, in ways I can't explain. Is this part of the magic you speak of?" "It is," she whispered, her gaze locked with his. "But it's more than magic, Mark. It's destiny. Our hearts, like our worlds, are meant to be intertwined." "Then I'll stand with you," Mark said, his voice steady, despite the storm of emotions within him. His journey beneath the waves, alongside Amana, had been a whirlwind of discovery and wonder, a constant push against the boundaries of his world and himself. Yet, in the quiet moments, as they navigated the ancient ruins of Atlantis, a different kind of storm brewed within him, a tempest of emotions. He had been so caught up in the magic, the mystery, and the mermaid beside him, that thoughts of his old life, of New York, and particularly of his father, had been pushed to the distant corners of his mind. But now, amidst the silent grandeur of the old mansion, memories of his father surfaced with a clarity that caught him off guard. Swift tears filled his eyes. His father's laughter, the warmth of his embrace, and the wisdom in his words. All these memories cascaded through Mark's thoughts, each one a poignant reminder of the life he had left behind. He realized with a pang of guilt that he had never said goodbye. In his haste to embrace his destiny, to answer the call of Amana, he had forgotten the anchor of his past, the man who had raised him, loved him, and shaped him into the person he was today. "How is he doing now?" Mark wondered out loud, his heart heavy with a mix of longing and regret. "Does he worry about me? Would he even believe this world exists, where I've been? Your father knows very well about my world, Mark. As I've told you before, he was the one who promised you to me, to this world." Amana's revelation hung between them, a shroud that threatened the harmony of the moment. Mark's heart, so full of love and trust, skipped a beat. Yes, she had mentioned it before, in whispers and half-tales, that his father had promised him to her world in exchange for riches beyond measure. But Mark had brushed it aside. A tale too impossible to believe. Too cruel. Too cold. There was no way his own father could do something like that. Only now, with Amana's words echoing in the stillness of their sacred place, did Mark feel the stirrings of disbelief, the rational part of his mind trying to break through the enchantment that had woven around his heart. What was wrong with his mind, he thought. It was like he couldn't even think straight since meeting Amana. That can't be true, he murmured, his voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and emerging anger. You're lying. Amana's face, usually so serene, mirrored the turmoil in Mark's heart. She reached for him, her touch a plea for understanding. Mark, I would never lie to you about this. Your father believed in what he was doing. When he came to us, riches were all he sought, all he wanted. I don't believe you. His voice cracked, strained by emotion. My father would never just give me away, for a destiny I wasn't given a choice in. Mark, your destiny in this world with me is more than a bargain. It's a calling, a purpose that has brought us together. Your father saw that, even if the means by which he did it are hard to accept, Amana said. The air around them felt colder now. Mark sat at the edge of the pool, the water rippling from the slow, involuntary motion of his merman's tail. Amana, noticing, let a smile touch her lips. Your tail is eager to swim again, to explore and frolic in the vastness of the sea. Deep down you know where you belong, Mark. Despite what you may think of your father's decision, there is a part of you that truly belongs to the sea and to me. Mark looked at her, then, and his heart stopped. Amana's smile was like the dawn, breaking through the shadows of doubt and fear, so beautiful. She leaned in, her lips meeting his in a kiss. It was a kiss of passion. The pool reflected their silhouettes, two souls united under the watchful eyes of the moon and stars. Mark squeezed her hand, his resolve solidifying as his heart, ignited with a flame of purpose and desire he had never known. Together, then. Whatever it takes, Amana, we'll face it together, for our worlds and for us. Amana, Mark said, his voice laced with determination. Tell me what we must do. How do we protect the balance between our worlds? Amana stared into the old pool, her eyes scanning the water reflecting the moon. There lies the challenge, she began, her voice solemn. The artifact that maintains the balance between our worlds is sealed away. Without it, the bridge will collapse, and our worlds will fall into chaos. Mark's brows furrowed. Then we must retrieve it. But where do we start? Abruptly, the serene stillness of the night fractured under the might of a deep, resonant roar, its force vibrating through the very foundations of the building. The pool's waters, once calm, erupted into tumultuous chaos, surging and swirling as though possessed by a life of their own, yet mysteriously contained, not spilling through doors, windows, or even the smallest of openings. Mark and Amana spun, their eyes catching the sight of an enormous wave ascending towards the sky. Come! A deep voice echoed from the wave and through the night. The guardian of the depths, Amana whispered, her voice laced with awe and fear. He's heard my call. He holds the way to the artifact's location, but to appease him, we must prove our worth. Mark squared his shoulders, his resolve hardening. Then let's not keep him waiting. Hand in hand, they dived into the pool. Despite its gushing turmoil, the water embraced them like an old friend. As they swam deeper, the moonlight faded, replaced by the bioluminescent glow of the underwater world. Fish of every color and size darted around them, but Mark's focus was on Amana, her beauty magnified by the ethereal light. They reached the guardian, a colossal figure with eyes as deep as the ocean. Why do you seek the artifact? His voice boomed, echoing through the water. To protect the balance between our worlds, Amana replied, her voice steady. The guardian's gaze shifted to Mark. And you, land dweller? What drives you to the depths? Mark met the Guardian's gaze, his voice unwavering. Love, for her, for our worlds, and for the future we can build together. A silence fell, as profound as the ocean itself. Then, the Guardian nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. Your journey will take you to the sunken ruins of Luminara, beneath the city of Manhattan. There, you will find the ecliptic amulet, within the Temple of the Moon. With a wave of his hand, the Guardian opened a path through the water, revealing a shimmering portal. Mark and Amana exchanged a glance, and they swam through the portal. All the while Mark's heart and mind suddenly racing at the mention of his old home, Manhattan. Thoughts of his father clouded his mind until he and Amana emerged from the portal and found themselves in the midst of the sunken ruins of Luminara. It was an ancient city whose beauty and mystery surpassed anything Mark had imagined at the mention of a sunken city beneath Manhattan. The remnants of grand temples and palaces were adorned with intricate carvings, now guardians of the deep, their secrets veiled by the ocean's embrace. The ecliptic amulet lies within the Temple of the Moon, Amana said, pointing towards a structure that stood resolute against the test of time, its once gleaming surfaces now kissed by corals and sea life. They journeyed through the ruins. Mark, who had once walked the concrete jungles of Manhattan, now swam with ease beside Amana, their movements in perfect harmony with the ocean's rhythm. As they approached the temple, Mark couldn't help but marvel once again at Amana's form, her tail propelling her forward with grace and power, her dreadlocks floating like a halo around her. She was not just a mermaid. She was his beacon in the depths, his partner in this quest that had become their shared destiny. Inside the temple, they found themselves in a chamber illuminated by an ethereal glow. At its center lay a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient ecliptic amulet, its aura pulsating with magic. There it is. The amulet is the key, but it is secured by strong locks, Amana cautioned, her voice a whisper in the sacred silence. To release the amulet, we must go to the surface where its shackles are anchored. No sooner had she spoken than they both noticed two great chains tied to the end of the amulet via two rings that were part of the amulet itself, and rising through a hole to the surface. As Mark glided towards the opening, a sudden pause arrested his motion. Turning, he realized Amana wasn't beside him, her figure a silhouette against the aquatic gloom. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern threading his voice as he halted, facing her. Amana's gaze lingered on the aperture above, a tumult of emotions reflected in her eyes. "I cannot accompany you," she confessed, her voice a soft echo in the water's embrace. "You must face this path alone." "What? No!" Mark's protest was immediate, his heart sinking. "I thought we were in this together." "We are," Amana assured, her words bittersweet. "But this threshold, I cannot cross. I'll wait for you here." Her eyes, wide and tinged with apprehension, darted to the opening. "I fear the land above, enclosed and alien. There's a risk I might be trapped. Can you understand?" "All right," Mark conceded, a swell of understanding tempering his disappointment. "I'll return then." His gaze dropped to his tail, the realization dawning. "But how will I—" "Do not worry," Amana interjected, her voice firm yet tender. "This is your destiny. The land will welcome you, and you will walk on two legs once more. But remember, once you return to these waters, it will be the final time." As Mark turned, resolved to ascend, Amana reached out, her hand closing around his with a gentle pull, drawing him back to her. "When you regain your legs, will you return to me, or will you choose the path of land and run away from me?" The earnest fear in her question, the vulnerability in her grasp, anchored Mark's resolve. Gazing into her eyes, he found the depth of his own certainty. "I will come back to you, Amana. Not land, nor sea, nor any force can keep me from returning to your side." My heart is, and always will be, entwined with yours. With determination fueling his strokes, Mark surged upwards, navigating through the water with a grace lent by his merman's tail. Reaching the surface, he hoisted himself through the opening, relying on the strength of his arms. The moment his tail grazed the ground within, an enchanting spectacle unfolded. Warm, magical light swirled around him, focusing on his tail, transforming it seamlessly back into legs. Mark watched in awe, a mixture of disbelief and wonder etching his features as he stood, marveling at the return of his human form. It had been ages since he last used his legs, and now, looking down at them, he couldn't help but grin at the oddity, the reversal of what was once familiar and what now seemed strange. Amana, he whispered, her name a soft acknowledgement of her unseen presence and guidance. His gaze, following her silent call, immediately landed on a massive key adjacent to the great chains anchoring the amulet beneath the water. With swift movements, he grasped the key, its weight significant yet manageable, and turned it in the lock, releasing the first chain with a satisfying click. But as he advanced towards the second lock, a halt came not from physical barrier, but from a voice so achingly familiar that it plunged Mark into the depths of memory and emotion. He froze, then slowly turned, his heart thumping a wild rhythm. There, behind him, stood his father, older, aged over 10 years, extending a hand in a gesture meant to soothe, to reassure. "Mark, son," his father said, the warmth and regret in his voice tangible. "I knew you'd find your way here. Please, you don't have to do this. It's all my fault, but you don't have to continue. Come," he beckoned, his plea laden with a desperation Mark had never heard before. "Come back home with me." Mark, who hadn't aged a day since his father last saw him, stood at the precipice of choice, the key in his hand pulsing with the same magical warmth that had transformed him. His father's eyes, brimming with a complex mix of remorse and hope, sought his, searching for a sign of understanding, of forgiveness. For a heartbeat, Mark's resolve wavered. The longing for the familiar, for the father he once knew, tugged at his heart. Yet the image of Amana, waiting beneath the waves, her trust in him a beacon, steadied his spirit. Their journey, their love, had transcended realms, and in her, Mark had found a purpose greater than any he could have imagined in his once ordinary life. "Mark, son," his father implored again, stepping closer. "We can leave all this behind. There's nothing for you here, in this fantasy. Come back with me. Let's go home." Home. The word echoed in Mark's mind, but it no longer painted a picture of the life he had left behind. Home was where the heart resided, and his heart was with Amana, in the depths of the ocean, in the magic that coursed through his veins, in the promise of a future they would forge together. "Father," Mark began, his voice steady, imbued with a strength born of love and conviction. "This isn't just a fantasy. It's my destiny. Amana, the world we're fighting to save, it's as real as you and me. I can't turn my back on that. Not now, not for anything." The silence that followed was thick, charged with 1,000 unsaid words, 1,000 fragmented memories. Mark's father looked at him, really looked, and in his gaze he saw the dawning realization of the man his son had become. Not the boy he had tried to protect with misguided decisions, but a guardian of worlds, a keeper of promises, a man in love. I see," his father said at last, the words heavy with resignation and a newfound respect. "Then, do what you must, Mark. I'm proud of you, son." With those words, a weight lifted from Mark's shoulders, a permission granted, not for his journey, but for the reconciliation of his past and his future. He turned back to the lock, the key ready in his hand. "Thank you, Father," Mark said, not turning back this time. For everything. I love you, Mark. His father's voice, soft yet laden with emotion, floated to him, a whisper that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Mark felt the profound sincerity and strength in those words. And I you, he murmured in return, his own voice barely above a breath, echoing the depth of their bond. With a deep breath, he inserted the key into the second lock, twisting it with a resolve that felt like the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. The chain fell away, and the amulet was free, its glow a beacon of hope, of victory. As the magic of the amulet began to work, sealing the breach between worlds and restoring balance, Mark felt a pull, a call back to the depths, to Amana. He glanced back once more, not at his father, but at the skyline of Manhattan, a world that had shaped him, but no longer held him. Then, he dove, the transformation enveloping him once more, guiding him back to the sea, to Amana. The water welcomed him, the familiarity of his merman form, a testament to the journey he had undertaken, to the choices he had made, all in the name of love. Below, Amana awaited, her smile a beacon brighter than any treasure. As Mark approached, their hands met, their connection a force no chains could bind, no distance could diminish. The amulet erupted into a brilliant beacon, its light diffusing seamlessly into the surrounding waters, radiating outward in waves of luminescence that permeated the entire ocean. This radiant energy, both mystical and boundless, wove through the depths, a dazzling display that touched every corner of the sea. We did it, Mark whispered, their foreheads touching in a moment of pure connection. We did, Amana agreed, her eyes alight with love and pride. Together. And in the depths of the ocean, amidst the ruins of a world that had once divided them, Mark and Amana embraced, their kiss a seal on their promises, a vow of endless adventures to come, bound not by fate, but by a love as deep and vast as the sea itself.